Hey, what's up guys? My name is Michael Westbrook. As always, thanks for checking out this video. Today we are diving even further into the Strymon Iridium, more specifically the Strymon Impulse Manager. If you haven't seen my last video, be sure to check that out. In that video, I talk about tips and tricks for tweaking the Iridium and things to think about as you're dialing in your tones. Today, we're going to take a look specifically at the Impulse Manager and IRs. I want to give you guys some tips and different things to think about when selecting IRs and blending and mixing IRs inside the Impulse Manager. I'll also mention that I just released a brand new IR pack for 2021. Those are compatible with the Iridium as well as Line 6 products and many more. So if you're looking for some great IRs, be sure to check the links in the description for more info. That is a kind of hand-picked, curated selection of IRs. It's not hundreds of IRs, but hopefully that will help you get to making music quickly and easily. All right, let's take a look at the Impulse Manager now. As you can see here, we've got the Impulse Manager pulled up, and I actually have one of my collections loaded that I've created. Those are super easy to create. We just put in our IRs and then hit Save Collection. This is pulls up over here on the right. You can also see the Strymon factory cabs, which is what it comes with, and then some other collections that we can load in. So one thing I want to talk about is, you know, the cool thing about the Iridium is that it's stereo, and that means that we can use stereo IRs. But it also means that we can use, you know, dual mono IRs, right? So we could put one type of IR on the left and another type on the right. I talk about this in my previous video with mixing different IRs and different styles of IRs. We can kind of make some different types of sounds and get more versatility out of the Iridium. It seems like most manufacturers of IRs right now are creating mono IRs, which for the Iridium works out great because it makes it super easy to blend and try different combinations. Here's what I'm talking about. So over here, these are some of my IRs. I call these raw single mics. These are just a mic on a speaker, no EQ, no blending, just this speaker with this mic on it. So what we can do, say we're on the, let's go to the chime amp. So that means that I could put, maybe I want to put a greenback that uses a 47 tube mic on the left, and then maybe I'm going to put a gold with a 121 on the right. Now essentially what this does is it gives us a 212 cabinet with a greenback on one side and a Alnico gold, Celestian gold on the right side. This is a really popular thing to do with 212 cabinets, to have two different types of speakers. It gives us different frequency response from each speaker and kind of a fuller overall picture of the sound. Now, one thing that we can run into when we do this is that if a speaker is brighter than another, then it might seem a little louder, and our left and right might seem a little off balance. It might feel like it leans to the left if the speaker on the left is a little brighter. My guess is that's probably the case with this pairing right here, a greenback with a condenser mic on it versus a gold with a ribbon mic on it. The greenback is more than likely brighter. So this is one cool thing about the Impulse Manager that I really like, is if we hit this I right here, or info, then we have the ability to tweak both sides. We can adjust the level or this, you know, general treble and bass. This can be super helpful. Say we have different styles of IRs or IRs from different, you know, manufacturers, and some are generally brighter than others, or maybe some don't have as much bass as others. We can kind of use these to balance them all out, or say, you know, some are louder than others, and we're mixing and matching different IRs. We can use these controls to kind of balance those out. That way when we switch between our different IRs, you know, on the face of the pedal, that they're all relatively in the same ballpark. And it might be easier for us to dial in tones, it might be quicker for us to dial in tones if we can kind of rough them in using these controls. Again, one reason why I like mixing different IRs in the stereo field is maybe we get a little more separation. We get kind of a bigger, wider picture that you know, represents some different frequencies with each speaker. And yeah, for me, I just find that it really works well and gives me a really full sound. One thing that I failed to mention in this section is that we can also use the same speaker but a different mic on the speaker. So two separate IRs with different types of mics. Maybe we use a Shure SM57 on one side and a Royer 121 on the other. Now, a lot of times in that scenario, the 121 is going to have a lot more low end, it's going to be darker, and we might have to balance those out unless it's been EQ'd or something. But, you know, maybe it's two other dynamic mics. Maybe it's a 57 and a 421 or something similar. This is going to give you that bigger, bigger picture, more frequency variation between the two sides. It might give you a little bit broader picture in the stereo field and just a different type of sound. So definitely try that kind of scenario too. If you really like one type of speaker, maybe it's using an IR that uses a different type of microphone to give you some variation between the sides. Now, one cool thing about the Impulse Manager is that we also have the ability to run mono IRs or dual mono IRs. So let's take our greenback here that we just used, the L47, and we can drop that in the center right here, and that makes it mono. This should give us still our stereo effects, but it's going to be going through the same IR on each side. The reason why we might do this is to give us kind of a more direct sound, a more immediate sound that's very centered and very focused. But we're still going to have those stereo effects if we want them. If we're just running mono, then this might be our best bet too, so we don't get any phase cancellation or weirdness with phase. Even though an IR might be in phase, it doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't certain frequencies that might cancel out. This is also something to be careful about when you're mixing IRs from different manufacturers. You might find that they don't always combine well. They might not be in phase and whatnot. So unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't really work out to combine IRs from different manufacturers. But if you're combining IRs from the same manufacturer, you shouldn't have a problem combining them all together and getting them to work well. So now I want to talk about kind of an unconventional trick when you are using different IRs. And this is a trick that I've talked about in a Line 6 video previously, but it's the idea of adding a delay to one side. I generally use about a 9 millisecond delay. Some people use other types of delay, but this is especially useful if maybe you just play by yourself at home and you just want a really wide stereo image. So here I'm in Pro Tools and I've actually pulled a IR into Pro Tools. This is a greenback with an SM7B on it. It's a mono IR. As you can see, there's only one wave here. And I'm going to delay this 9 milliseconds. So I'm going to move it over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, so that's 9 milliseconds over. Let's select all of this. Consolidating that, I have it on a grid to 500 milliseconds. 500 milliseconds is our the full length of the IR that it can be in the Iridium. So now I have a 500 second long IR that has a 9 millisecond delay at the beginning. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine that IR with the original IR, and this should give me a really cool stereo image that feels really wide and feels really nice when you're playing by yourself. Now, I will say if you're playing in mono, there's no need to do this. And again, you might get a little bit of phase cancellation with certain frequencies. Overall, it should work okay, but there's really no need to do it if it's going to be consolidated back into mono. So this is, again, especially helpful if you're just at home playing by yourself. It's going to make it feel really wide and really nice. I mentioned this in my last video, but don't be afraid to try unorthodox combinations of speakers or speaker IRs when you're using the amps in the Iridium. I've found by using American style speakers on the punch model that's set clean, it kind of gives me a really cool clean sound that is, somewhere maybe in the middle of an American and a British sound. Another option is to use the round model, and maybe you put an American style speaker on one side and a British style speaker on the other. There are really no rules when it comes to mixing and matching IRs and different types of speakers. You know, it's like if it sounds good, it is good. So experiment, find different things. Don't forget to use those, the features that are in the Impulse Manager to tweak them with the treble and the bass and the overall level, just to help even things out and get things feeling really good to you. So there's one thing to look out for when you're trying different IRs in the stereo field, a different IR on the left and right, and that's to listen for a shifting stereo field. Sometimes I find with certain combinations, if I play a certain type of part, then it might want to lean to the left or to the right. This is due to the natural differences in frequency responses between speakers or mic combinations or whatever, just the IR itself. So it's something to look out for. A lot of times it's not an issue. Sometimes it might be really distracting for you. So you might have to find a different combination or an IR that's made with a different mic or a different speaker altogether. There's kind of a give and take with this. I find that those difference in frequency responses can be really nice, especially for really subtle type parts, maybe where you're playing lightly. It makes it feel a little more alive and a little more like you were in the room with the amp. Whereas maybe a more aggressive part, or you're playing more aggressively, you might not want that kind of back and forth that you find with those different frequency responses in the IRs. But give it a shot, try it, something to listen for and look out for as you are looking for your tones. Hopefully some of these things are helpful for you. Again, if you haven't seen my previous video on tweaking the Iridium, be sure to check that out for more great tips. All right, until the next one, I'll see you out there.